She escaped her Sheikh husband on their wedding night. What happened next will leave you shocked. As Sarah Thompson stood in front of the mirror, lace cascading over her shoulders, the once blissful smile faded from her lips. The grandeur of the event was suffocating. The lavish hotel room felt more like a gilded cage than the fairy tale escape she'd imagined. Underneath the layers of silk lay an overwhelming sense of panic. She had dreamt of passion, freedom, a life filled with vibrant colors, but instead, she was shackled by the weight of expectation. The thought of Amir's strong presence paired with the societal duties tied to their marriage pressed down upon her with suffocating intensity. Was this the freedom she had yearned for? Or a prison of her own making? Suddenly, the shimmering truth of her situation hit her. She wasn't just a bride, she was a trophy, woven into the fabric of tradition that seemed to swallow her whole. The room felt stifling, and with each second, her heart raced faster. What about the art classes she loved? The late-night conversations that brewed creativity and friendship? Could she really trade it all for this propped up in a world she never wanted? The very thought made her feel like screaming. As the weight of her responsibilities wrapped tighter around her like a boa constrictor, there was only one impulse surging through her veins: escape. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With one final glance, she pushed the door open and slipped through the opulent hallways, determination igniting her every step. Racing down the stairs, she could almost hear the whispers of judgment that would follow her, a young woman unwillingly shackled to her fortune. But beyond the shadow of Amir's wealth, she could taste freedom. The boldness of defiance ignited her spirit as she approached the exit, uncharacteristic panic fueling her actions. She would seek the familiar embrace of her family, where love nurtured authenticity, far away from the burdensome chains of expectation. As the familiar landscape of her childhood home came into view, her heart swelled with nostalgia but also trepidation. Would they understand? The tension thickened around her like a fog, sharpened by the silent questions that buzzed through the small town. What would her neighbors think, their whispers painting her departure as either brave or foolish? She had always been the art instructor, the kind-hearted sister. Returning as a bride who fled felt like betraying the very essence of who she was. In the days that followed, as she poured her emotions onto canvas, the paintbrush felt like a lifeline. Each brushstroke dripped with the struggles of her heart, birthed from silent cries and desperate hopes. But the world around her was not as welcoming as the art. In the backdrop of her works, ugly truths emerged, an insidious bias toward her return, toward the very notion of a woman leaving her husband, a ripple that accelerated her growing frustration and despair. And then Amir returned. Charming, enigmatic, his very presence was both a warming glow and a debilitating chill. Torn between desires she never thought she could redefine and the tightening grip of traditional obligations, Sarah faced the question of her autonomy. He wasn't just trying to bring her back, he was cleverly manipulating the very fibers of her being. The hidden layers of her identity were unspooling, leaving her raw and exposed. Would she bend to the pressure of expectation or risk losing herself entirely? As they stood among her paintings, he posed the question that would shatter her overthinking. What is your true self, Sarah? What do you choose between duty and desire? The air thickened with unspoken judgments hanging upon the anxious crowd, and for the first time, her brush faltered. In that precarious moment, she felt the tremors of possibility mixed with fear. But could she muster the courage to articulate her unfiltered truth? The flickering lights caught the essence of her spiraling mind, each character in the audience holding their breath in anticipation. Would she succumb, or would she finally claim her identity? The crowd's anxious murmurs faded into a dull roar as Sarah felt her breath catch in her chest. Her heart drummed against her ribcage, primal instincts urging her to flee, while the challenge Amir had laid before her lingered in the air, thick and oppressively heavy. She stood at a crossroad, each path equally terrifying, Years of conditioning as the dutiful daughter, the obedient sister, flashed through her mind, but so did the innovative artist she yearned to become. The thought of stepping into the brightly colored world of her imagination filled her with both exhilaration and dread. This moment wasn't just about choosing her artistic path. It was about reclaiming her identity, one brushstroke at a time. As she looked around the room filled with familiar faces, she felt the complexities of their expectations weighing her down. This wasn't just about her. This was a community with unspoken rules, woven tight by tradition. The thought of their judgment twisted in her stomach. Could she be the woman who defied the norm, or would this moment become another example of her running away? Amir's gaze pierced through her, magnetic yet foreboding, an unyielding reminder of what she had attempted to escape. The subtleties of their past arguments and negotiations loomed over her like dark clouds on a sunlit day. She opened her mouth, and in that split second, years of indecision crystallized into a singular thought. What if my true self has been waiting in the shadows, afraid of exposure? She took a cautious step forward, past the canvas that represented her turmoil, her rebellion. I choose me. The words tumbled out, unrefined yet powerful. A hush fell over the room, the weight of her declaration hanging ominously. The fervor of disbelief washed over Amir's face, mingled with admiration and a hint of challenge. You're willing to trade comfort for uncertainty? His voice was low, calm yet seething with unanticipated emotion. Yes, she responded, steadiness creeping into her voice, cutting through her earlier panic. The vibrancy of her unfulfilled dreams painted a tempting picture of possibility that replaced fear with palpable hope. But as quickly as her resolve bloomed, conflict surged like an incoming tide. Doubts fluttered, echoing in her mind. She couldn't ignore the fact that she would be scrutinized, a pariah among peers who couldn't fathom a woman claiming her autonomy in a world that had long dictated its boundaries. The tension in Amir's posture suggested he saw through her initial bravado, probing for cracks. Just remember, he cautioned, as if his words were both a warning and an invitation, the world won't change for you. You may find that not everyone celebrates your choices. His challenge clung to her thoughts, igniting the embers of rebellion deep within her core. For the first time, Sarah felt liberated in her uncertainty. Honesty opened pathways she had never imagined possible. Driven by a sudden longing, she turned back to her easel and with swift, bold strokes began capturing her feelings: anger, confusion, and hope. With every dip of the brush, she poured her essence onto the canvas, a labyrinth of color, an emotion that reflected her fragmented self coming back together. As the colors mingled and created a vibrancy she hadn't felt before, a sense of clarity washed over her. Within severe lines and wild strokes lay truth, her truth. However, amid the catharsis, she sensed the presence of onlookers. Whispers swirled in the corners, discussions rippling through the audience as they tried to decipher her work, her choices. Peripheral glances from those she once cherished felt invasive, scrutiny threatening to overwhelm her newfound courage. Could she withstand the judgment? The looming question clawed at her as she painted, tearing her between embracing the freedom of authenticity and the fear of rejection from those she loved. As each stroke strengthened her resolve, she felt herself teetering on the edge of revelation, ready to confront the tides of expectation both from others and within herself. And then, Amir leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper that sent shivers down her spine. What will happen when you reveal the true canvas of your heart? In that moment, she understood that her journey had only just begun, with challenges far graver than she had ever anticipated lying just ahead. Sarah turned toward Amir, her eyes blazing with newfound determination. Then let them see what's real. I can't hide anymore. The air shimmered around her, choices converging in an explosive moment of daring. But as she prepared to face whatever awaited her, an unseen specter loomed in the background, lurid shadows threatening to derail her journey. Behind her stood not just her family, not just Amir, but questions swirling about identity, love, and sacrifice. Could she remain untamed while facing the consequences of her choices? The moment stretched, dangling between courage and fear, ready to snap. The time would come to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it would be. The paintbrush trembled in Sarah's grip, her pulse thrumming in sync with the electric energy of her decision. She had stepped beyond the threshold of her past, yet uncertainty still clawed at her feet, attempting to pull her back. Each stroke she made on the canvas ignited a flicker of rebellion against the stronghold of tradition. Her heart raced not merely with fear, but with the recognition of untapped potential her artistic voice was awakening. Yet, as hues spread across the canvas, she could not shake the sensation of being ensnared in a fishbowl, eyes peering from every angle. The whispers surrounded her, dissecting her journey into pieces, unraveling her identity into a performance for the masses. Would these colors be seen as simply chaotic expressions or a powerful manifestation of her rebirth? With a sharp intake of breath, Sarah redirected her focus. The dialogue with herself intensified. She analyzed her motivations, the sheer necessity of this expression. Is this about them or me? She grappled with the dichotomy of her desires, her need for acceptance colliding with a burgeoning need for authenticity. This was the crux of her transformation, no more dodging the confrontations her art had to offer, no more living to ease others' discomfort. As she layered the pigments, each stroke became an exploration of her truth, depictions of shackled spirits emerging from vibrant landscapes, with colors swirling and colliding in a dance of chaos and beauty. Confirming her existence in this world was painful, but ignoring it was unbearable. She fought against the instinct to revert back, the pact with self-doubt that whispered treachery in the folds of her mind. Amir's presence loomed large. His earlier words played like a ghost, punctuating her resolve. The world would not shift to accommodate her desires, she must carve her own space. But how? The question gnawed at her, a two-headed serpent of ambition and fear. What if she wasn't enough? What if the world dismissed her as a mere rebel without cause? The colors on her canvas began to morph, reflecting turmoil but also strength. As if responding to her inner conflict, the painting formed a striking contrast of shadows and light, embodying her dichotomous existence of compliance and rebellion. Sarah felt an unfamiliar warmth seep through the cold tendrils of doubt, a growing insistence that she could shape her reality like the art she created. Fueled by a burning desire to voice the unspeakable, she turned toward her audience, their eyes glimmering with curiosity and judgment alike. Sarah understood then that this moment transcended her. It wasn't merely about her declaration of self to the world, it was a commitment to reframe her narratives, publicly rewriting her story under the scrutiny of watchful eyes. In an unexpected surge of courage, she stepped back from the easel, allowing space for introspection. Silence blanketed the room, all attention drawn upon her. Swallowing hard, Sarah kept her gaze on Amir, who silently urged her forward. The questions she had long evaded were now demanding to be engaged. What was she afraid of? Was it truly the judgment of others, or the potential of her failure? With the gravity of those considerations heavy on her mind, Sarah articulated her intent, her voice steady as she declared, "This isn't just how I see my world. This is how I define myself." The transformative equation of her emotional experiences collided, her soul fortified by the release. This wasn't merely a declaration, it was an embodiment of her struggle and aspirations, her will to thrive against constraints that threatened to bury her brilliance. Then the unexpected happened. The collective air shifted, a palpable change swept through the crowd. Their whispers turned into admiration, some even nodding in understanding. Recognition gleamed in their eyes. The power of vulnerability could forge connections where there had been once division. Yet, amid a burgeoning sense of acceptance, a stomach-churning thought arose: meeting their approval could trap her into complacency yet again. Would her rebellion become another box, one she de-locked herself into? As they took in the raw energy of her work, uncertainty began to creep in. Could she sustain this new identity as she navigated her relationships? As she looked at Amir, the lingering challenge etched on his face echoed louder than any cheers ever could. Was she ready for the implications of her choices? The undercurrents of her journey thus far pointed toward a conclusion she both dreaded and craved. The moment to take what lay ahead became a necessity, daunting in proportions yet irresistible. With lingering questions hanging like unturned leaves waiting for the wind, Sarah understood. She could no longer stay in the shadows of conformity. The next step embraced freedom, though it might also beckon confrontation. With a deep breath, she stood firm, poised at the edge of her awakening, aware that the journey toward true liberation demanded relentless courage. Now she was prepared for revelations yet to come, decisions that would push her further into the depths of her spirit and beyond. The question forming in her mind was as electrifying as it was fearsome: what would happen when the walls of her past finally came crashing down? The tranquility of the room clashed with the unrest coursing through Sarah. With her statement reverberating in the silence, the weight of what she had just said sank in. This wasn't just about her art, it was an assertion of her identity, a spiral of choices unfolding before her. The applause began to trickle and their hands clapped uncertainly at first, a hesitant embrace of a truth they hadn't anticipated. Yet each sound felt like a double-edged sword cutting through her newfound conviction. With her heart hammering, she observed the faces before her, some lit with encouragement, others clouded with confusion. She felt exposed, not in the naked vulnerability of raw emotion, but as if each person was weighing her soul, dissecting her layers like an intricate, fragile sculpture. Confidence shimmered and faded like the paint on her canvas, and she grappled with the fallout of her declaration. The pressure bore down even heavier with Amir's steady gaze anchoring her thoughts. He had seen the passion, the trepidation, the bursts of genius, yet he remained the embodiment of her fears. Could he accept this version of her? She had never truly tested the dimensions of their relationship beyond the superficial layers, yet now the fabric of her existence was inextricably interwoven with questions surrounding it. Taking a moment, she knotted her fingers, inhaling slowly to regain her composure. Was she prepared for the judgments lodged not just from acquaintances but from herself? Would the pursuit of authenticity demand a severance from the very connections she so desperately craved? The haunting irony reflected in Amir's unyielding silence. In pursuing her own truth, might she inadvertently risk losing the partial acceptance she once held? This spiraled into a new realm of depth. The belief that her art could act as her shield and her weapon was compelling, yet could it sustain her through inevitable fallout? The more she contemplated, the more labyrinthine the implications became. Nearby, a fellow artist, Clara, slowly approached. "I loved what you said, but are you ready for the reactions? They'll scrutinize every brushstroke." Clara's voice was soft but steady, filled with the weight of prior experiences. The warning engulfed Sarah like a tide sliding through an open door. She understood the impending storm that curiosity and critique could create. "I need to be ready," Sarah replied with surprising clarity, her voice firming with each word. Her previous intention now morphed into a silent promise to herself, to forge ahead no matter the obstacles. The audacity to openly confront her fears ignited a spark within, one she could neither ignore nor downplay. Yet there lingered an unsettling thought: should she brace for a backlash that could leave her vulnerable in ways she hadn't prepared for? Would others discard her journey as a farce, eclipsed by insecurities of their own? The fear of failure loomed large, tantalizing and paralyzing. But within that fear was a choice: could she either embrace it as part of her path or allow it to become her crutch? As the conversation swirled around her with an intoxicating mix of admiration and skepticism, an epiphany emerged. Perhaps authenticity was not merely an external performance. It demanded a comprehensive embrace of her complexities. She realized she had to name her fear out loud, confronting it starkly amid the applause and whispers. Pulling in a breath, she prepared for that journey. In the midst of a swirl of excitement, she felt a tug on her sleeve. "Amir, you're different today. I see it. Don't dampen that energy." His gaze steadied her spiraling thoughts, a reminder of the perspective she had momentarily lost. "I'm determined to find my true voice," she admitted, the words spilling with newfound strength. "But I need to stay prepared for whatever comes next." "What are you most afraid of?" Amir asked. His eyes held an intensity that demanded honesty. At that question, her mind raced. A mixture of answers clashed within. Was it the fear of failure, of judgment, or the absolute burden of success looming at the periphery? Each facet of her hesitation, cradled beneath layers of former expectations, carried a deep-seated fear, whispering a cruel reminder of her past. As she wrestled with her own revelations, something unfurled in the air around her. The swirling energy of the crowd, the heat of their expectations, felt staggering yet exhilarating. Each second a reminder that liberation lay not just in declaring her truth, but in dancing with all of its unpredictable ramifications. With perspectives shifting within her, Sarah couldn't help but ponder what price would she pay to redefine her canvas of existence. Could she confront the barriers before her, knowing they could morph into allies or adversaries alike? Determination surged anew. And beneath that noise of anticipation, another question loomed heavy in her mind. Was she ready to confront the deepest corners of her fears, even if it meant standing alone? The applause faded into a distant hum, leaving Sarah adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. Each breath she took felt heavy, weighted down by the reality of her declaration. Though she had embraced her truth, she could feel the fragile fabric of her convictions beginning to fray. The crowd began to disperse, conversations sparking and fizzling, but her mind remained anchored in the moment, a swirling vortex of anxiety and exhilaration. Amir's presence beside her was a tether to sanity. He had always been her rock, yet today he felt like both a supporter and an unmovable obstacle. Sarah glanced at him, trying to decode the mystery of his expression. Was he proud, worried, or simply contemplating how to navigate this new dimension of her? The uncertainty gnawed at her thoughts. "I'm proud of you," he finally said, his voice low but firm, cutting through her mental fog. "But you need to be ready. The world out there doesn't take kindly to these transformations." His tone was laced with both caution and admiration. "I understand," Sarah nodded, but words felt insufficient. Emotion welled up inside her like tempestuous waves crashing against a cliff. She had prepared herself to voice her intentions, yet the ripple effects remained painfully unclear. As fingers trembled against her canvas, her lifeblood, the heaviness morphed into a simmering fire. What if her art was indeed a battleground? A space where confrontation with adversity was inevitable? The thought bolstered her resolve, but the reality of scrutiny loomed large. What if she fell short, her vision blurring with self-doubt? While Amir engaged in low-key whispers with Clara across the room, Sarah's gaze drifted over her canvas. The pieces she had chosen to showcase felt like a reflection of her very soul. Every stroke represented her quest for genuine expression, yet stood on the precipice of rejection. In those moments, doubt clawed at her mind as sharply as inspiration filled her heart. Without realizing it, she had filtered her art, shaped it according to expectations, colored it in familiar tones. Would the audience recognize her layers beneath the surface? Would they seek the authenticity she so desperately wished to unveil? The desire for acceptance battled against the cry for unabashed self-expression. The vulnerability of her position stung. To redefine herself meant dismantling the structures that kept her safe yet contained. Would those she considered friends applaud her evolution, or would they view her transformation as an affront to their comfort? The thought twisted in her gut like a coiling serpent. With Amir at her side, she felt steady yet unsure. "How do I prepare?" she asked, the question spilling out of her with the weight of her worries. "What if my art doesn't resonate?" "Then we grow," Amir replied, his insight piercing through her uncertainty. "Resilience is forged in adversity, Sarah. Lean into the discomfort. It may lead you to unexpected places." His words acted as both a challenge and a reassurance. She needed to confront her fears head-on. "I have to show them who I am," she declared, feeling a burgeoning fire ignite within. But how far was she willing to plunge into the depths of her own vulnerabilities? Each painted canvas hinted at a potential rift not merely between her identity and the world's expectations, but within her artistic soul. As she took her first tentative step toward embracing discomfort, a chilling thought emerged. Would the act of revealing her true self create fractures in her foundation? What if this was only the beginning of a much larger battle? Sarah inhaled deeply, harnessing that spark of determination. She had taken a monumental step forward, but the path ahead felt foggy, uncharted, and fraught with obstacles. Just as she was about to share her fight with Amir, her phone chimed, drawing her attention away. A message flickered across the screen, unwelcome yet inescapable. "Sarah, I need to see you. It's important. Let us talk." The knot of uncertainty constricted around her heart. Who could this be? The unexpected urgency stirred both curiosity and dread. Was this the moment her past would re-enter her life and cloud her fight for authenticity? Sarah felt the weight of the message pressing heavily on her chest, more suffocating than any canvas she had ever painted. Anxiety crept into her thoughts, mingling with the remnants of her recent revelation. The juxtaposition of her bold declaration of self and the uncertain summons from the past sparked an internal conflict. Who was this person behind the message? And why now? Are you okay? Amir's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, a quiet concern etched across his face. It was a familiar look, the kind that hinted at the layers of her struggles he had come to know deeply. I just received a message, Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper as she glanced at her phone again. Who is it? He pressed gently, yet she hesitated. The last time her past had approached her, it had sent her retreating into silence. No, she couldn't let it overshadow her momentum, not now, not when she was finally coming into her own. Just someone from my past, she managed, forcing the words out to avoid deeper inquiry. I wasn't expecting this. Her heart raced, the conflicting emotions battling within her. What do you want to do? Amir's question hung in the air, a lifeline thrown out amidst the storm of her uncertainties. She contemplated her options, her mind racing through the various scenarios. Should she reply, eager to face whatever ghosts lurked from the corners of her history, or should she silence her phone, hoping that it wouldn't move into her present? The path toward authenticity felt full of thorns, and engaging with her past felt like stepping onto another battlefield entirely. I don't know yet, she confessed, the tremor in her voice betraying her. I feel like I should confront it, but I'm scared. Scared of what? Amir probed, his gaze steady and unwavering. Of what it might bring up, or what you might find out about yourself. She understood the implication. Facing the past often forced an encounter with the self she had kept hidden, one full of unresolved dreams and fears. Yet how could she embark on this journey of self-discovery with an uninvited guest from yesteryears waiting in the wings? The thought alone froze her. What if it negates everything I've worked to express? Sarah spat out, anger rising within her. What if it reopens wounds I've tried so hard to heal? Then you heal them again, Amir replied, simple yet profound, his belief in her an anchor. You've transformed, and growth requires addressing those parts of you that are still tethered in time. But remember, you are no longer the same person you were back then. She felt a flicker of determination amidst the mounting chaos, gratitude rippling through her for the unwavering support Amir offered. Perhaps confronting this person could illuminate yet another layer of herself, one she hadn't accounted for. Maybe you're right, she murmured, her mind starting to cull the strands of doubt. Control lay not in avoidance, but in engagement. It was time to embrace her truth fully, to stand up to whatever this message heralded. But then it struck her again, the painting she had been avoiding, the one that reflected her restless spirit. What if this encounter could ignite a fire within her creativity that would fuel her art rather than extinguish it? Inspiration could stem from understanding her past, not just from running away from it. I have to think about this, she finally said, looking Amir straight in the eyes. But I think I might want to meet. The words liberated her, casting aside her fears for a moment. Let us do it together, he offered, solid and reassuring. Whatever happens, you're not alone. The tension in the space shifted. Now it was charged with purpose and possibility. They both understood the stakes. This next step could either shatter or solidify her evolution. As hope battled with uncertainty, she took a steadying breath. Yeah, together, she repeated, resolute yet still aware of the looming risks. It seemed fitting that she would balance the frailty of vulnerability with the strength of uncharted resolve. As they stood amidst the remnants of the gathering, anticipation tinged the air like paint awaiting the brush. Sarah pulled up the message again, feeling each unfurling moment intertwine her past and present. And then, the screen flickered one final time. Can we talk tonight? The gravity of the words drew her in, daring her to take a step not just into confrontation but into a realm where true transformation waited if only she had the courage to seek it. That night held the promise of unearthing hidden truths. Would she emerge from this confrontation whole, or would she confront something darker than she had anticipated? Sarah's fingers brushed the screen of her phone, hovering over the message while conflicting thoughts churned in her mind. The simplicity of the words belied the whirlwind of possibilities it invoked. Meeting with someone from her past could unlock hidden truths, but the weight of those truths felt almost insurmountable. What would she discover about herself? The specter of bygone mistakes hung before her, ominous and alluring in its promise of revelation. Amir's presence nudged her toward resolution. His steadfast demeanor reassured her. His belief in her ability to confront the past ignited a flame of courage deep within. She knew she couldn't retreat back into those familiar shadows. The idea of running away again began to dissolve, replaced by a growing determination to own every part of her journey. "I'll meet him," she declared, conviction blooming as she spoke. "Tonight." Amir nodded, a silent affirmation of her choice. "Just remember to breathe." "You've got this," he encouraged, his unwavering support a testament to their bond. Yet despite his words, anxiety coiled tightly in her stomach. As the hours slipped by, Sarah paced her studio, surrounded by the canvases that had borne witness to her transformation. Each brushstroke chronicled her journey of self-discovery and healing. She paused to observe one particular piece, a swirling explosion of colors that mirrored her tumultuous emotions. It had been difficult to capture the feeling of freedom and entrapment simultaneously, yet it now felt honest. Drawing a deep breath, she diverted her gaze back to her workspace. Creating had long been her refuge, a way to channel her pain into beauty. Painting had pulled her from the depths of despair, helping piece together the fragments of her identity. Yet here she stood, preparing to breach a threshold that could either enhance her artistic expression or shatter it entirely. With time slipping away, she decided to revisit the painting she had avoided, the one that reflected her restless spirit. Confronting memories of that period could serve as both an act of courage and an opportunity to innovate. She grabbed her brush and worked feverishly, letting emotion spill onto the canvas as the color evolved under her touch, a cascading release of pent-up energy. Each stroke became a testament to her resolve to not allow her past to define her, but to inform her. The hours passed in a dance of creation, but with every brushstroke, anxiety cast its long shadow in the corner of her studio. What awaited her was still unknown, potentially painful, yet essential for growth. She quickly glanced at the clock and felt the gravity of the impending confrontation swell within her chest. The time arrived, and she forced herself to step into the unknown, pushing the anxiety aside, allowing her spirit to embrace the challenge. As she readied herself for the meeting, she committed to one thought: regardless of the outcome, she would express whatever truths emerged within her. With a final breath, she prepared herself to step beyond the constraints of her old life. The unresolved chapters that had previously haunted her were now ready to be rewritten, and she would play an active role in that narrative. When she arrived at the agreed location, her pulse quickened, anticipation flooding her senses. She spotted him waiting, the face from her past standing before her like a puzzle piece she was uncertain would fit into her life today. Would he uncover the fractures she had worked so hard to mend? Or would this encounter ignite a deeper understanding of herself and propel her forward like paint poured from a can? Messy, unpredictable, yet vividly transformative. Before she could analyze further, he looked up, their eyes locking, and in that moment, all her preparations fell into sharp focus. Would her past shackle her, or could it finally set her free? The answer loomed in the air, heavy with the implications of her choice. "Sarah," he said, his voice a mix of hesitation and familiarity. And in that moment, she felt the world narrowing to just the two of them, every other voice fading into silence as the confrontation she had anticipated loomed before her. The time had come to face the ghosts that lingered. What unsettling truths lay in wait, poised to reshape her understanding of her journey? The moment stretched, an eternity held within the fleeting instants of their gaze. Sarah felt the familiar twist of vulnerability spreading through her, but she willed herself to stand tall. The echoes of her past, like phantoms, whispered caution, but she drowned them out, focusing on the present, on him. "It's been a long time," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She gestured toward the empty chair across from him, resisting the urge to flee or crumble. This was a dialogue that she needed to have, a dialogue that would force her to reclaim the narrative of her life. Yeah, it has. You look different. His eyes flickered with genuine surprise, but beneath the pleasantry lingered unspoken questions. Sarah could sense the hesitation in his tone, a shared understanding that the years had not simply passed but had woven deeper complexity into their stories. I've changed, she affirmed, feeling the power of her own declaration. And you? Are you still the same person I remember? His smile faltered. I think we both know how life can twist us up. Some things change, others don't. As they settled into the conversation, the layers of their shared history unfolded. The memories that once felt like burdens now danced with the possibility of revelation. With each shared story, Sarah's grip on her past loosened. She no longer felt like a prisoner of those experiences. Instead, they became markers in the landscape of her growth. I was scared back then, he confessed, vulnerability blooming in the air between them like a fragile flower. I didn't know how to handle what we were going through. Scared? Her heart raced, buoyed by the admission. I was terrified too, but I allowed fear to govern my decisions and I ran. Acknowledging her own fears was a powerful moment, a personal ownership she hadn't truly embraced before. This lacked the drama of confrontations typically depicted. Instead, there was a poignant honesty unraveling their complex connection. I thought about you a lot, you know. Wondered if you were okay. He paused, a flash of regret crossing his face. I wanted to reach out, why didn't you? The question was out before she could stop it, sharp and urgent. He sighed, the weight of unspoken words hovering between them. I don't know. Maybe some things seemed too broken to fix. There it was, the real reason she questioned so much about their past, interwoven with her own sense of inadequacy. Fixed in place, she could see how they both bore scars from the choices they'd made. And yet, here they were, standing at the intersection of their past selves and the people they had become. As she listened to him, Sarah realized she no longer craved validation but rather understood that both of them were works in progress. His struggles mirrored hers. They had fought their own battles, yet the scars they bore were not symbols of defeat but of survival. Can we start again? She asked, the words tumbling out without the shield of expectation. Not as who we were, but as who we are now. His gaze softened. I'd like that. In that moment, Sarah felt the burdens of her history begin to lift. This wasn't about rewriting the past, but acknowledging it, understanding it, and realizing it could inform her future instead. A flicker of hope danced within her, a burgeoning realization that every conversation, every brushstroke, and every choice led to this precise moment of transformation. She had the power to redefine her narrative, both personally and professionally. But there was something else, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, the remnants of their shared history still casting shadows over unaddressed pain. Despite their shared revelations, Sarah felt the tension swell. Would the truths unearthed during their encounter truly liberate them from their pasts, or would they unveil deeper issues, forcing Sarah to confront not only her own history but also the future she envisioned? As the root of their shared discord lay lurking and unexamined, Sarah couldn't shake the thought. Would this rekindled connection empower her to move forward or drag her back into the shadows? The answers hovered just beyond reach, waiting for the next stroke to reveal their true colors. The seconds ticked forward, stretching the silence between them as shadows danced in earnest around their shared past. Sarah's heart raced not out of fear, but from a burgeoning realization. They were at the precipice of something terrifyingly new. She could sense her own hesitance rising as the lines from their previous lives blurred. However, the courage she summoned to face him fed an undeniable hunger for change. What are we afraid of? She asked, her boldness surprising even herself. The question hung in the air, an invitation for deeper exploration, the very thing they had skirted around in their earlier conversation. His brow furrowed, and Sarah waited for his response like a taut bowstring. Maybe it's not just fear. He sighed, running a hand through his hair in a casual yet revealing gesture of disquiet. It's uncertainty. We've both taken paths that have shaped us. What if we're not who we think we are anymore? The admission struck her with unexpected force, resonating on multiple levels. It echoed her own sentiments about professional aspirations and the evolution of personal identity. She had clung to nostalgic notions, imagining the woman she once was, rather than the one she was becoming. You may be right, she replied, allowing the realization to settle within her. Change can be both invigorating and disorienting. I didn't think we could meet again in any capacity, he admitted, dropping his gaze to the table. A part of me wanted to forget everything we were. Forget? The word came out sharper than intended, a burst of emotion spilling over. You can't truly forget pieces of yourself. Not without losing what makes you you. He raised his eyes, the tension between them palpable once more. But that pain, it's safer to tuck those memories away. What if dealing with them only opens old wounds? Her resolve hardened at his words. Pain is part of growth. I've learned that without embracing suffering, I wouldn't know joy or even what I stand for. His expression shifted, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them. Sarah realized they were delving into a significant moment, the kind that had the power to shift trajectories. Would they embrace the journey together, or linger in the safety net of their past? Okay, he said finally, an unexpected agreement simmering beneath the surface. Let us not tiptoe around the hard truths anymore. Let us face what really happened. Sarah took a breath, bracing herself. I feel out of practice, but I want to try. I want to understand not just you, but myself. This is about reclaiming my life. Then let us talk. His voice was steady now, matching the newfound clarity in her resolve. As their conversation unfolded, momentum propelled them. They ventured through regrets, dreams deferred, and promises broken. The more they explored, the more Sarah realized the quality of the conversation mattered more than ruptures of the past. Each word became an affirmation, a stitch in the fabric of her newfound understanding. Amidst their shared stories, she unearthed revelations about her own capacity for resilience. It ignited within her a stirring appetite for her professional aspirations. The career she had long abandoned now danced before her as a tantalizing prospect, one that no longer felt overshadowed by fear. Nights slipped into deeper quietude as the charts of their lives intertwined. Sarah envisioned a bridge across their discord, even as remnants of apprehension remained. It was thrilling, this dance between vulnerability and strength, a dangerous yet invigorating exercise in bravery. I want to pursue my art again, she declared, surprised by the fervor in her own voice. This conversation, it feels like a catalyst for something more than just us. He nodded, inspired by her revelation. And I want to explore my writing. It's something I never prioritized. Perhaps we could hold each other accountable, friends trying to pursue dreams. Would you be open to that? For the first time, Sarah considered the beauty of vulnerability in collaboration. The question cracked open her heart to possibilities. Uncharted. Definitely, she replied, excitement infusing her tone. As they parted, Sarah felt a pull in her gut. She was approaching the edge of something transformative, yet daunting. Could she navigate this new partnership without the echoes of fear rising again? What lay ahead demanded courage unmatched. The threads of her past still lingered, waiting to be unraveled. But amid the uncertainty, she realized this was her moment to reclaim her narrative, one brushstroke and one word at a time. Now the question loomed large. Would her renewed commitment to her art and friendship guide her to the future she envisioned, or would the tides of her past threaten to drown her once more? Standing amid her canvases, Sarah Thompson reflected on her transformed self. The meeting with her past had unearthed deep-rooted emotions, prompting her to evaluate the very fabric of her aspirations. The energy once confined within her as a wife, an artist, and a woman now sparked, igniting a fierce drive to reclaim her narrative. She had gently dismantled expectations, woven tightly by others, and began to understand that she was not merely a product of her decisions. She was a complex tapestry, each thread representing struggle, growth, pain, and triumph. The echoes of her past had not extinguished her spirit. Instead, they fed the vibrant colors now splashed boldly across her latest canvas. The tumultuous journey had culminated in the realization that her art was more than a hobby, it was her lifeblood. In a surge of clarity, she decided to hold her first gallery exhibit. It was time to present her art in its unapologetic form, raw, personal, and unfiltered. This wasn't just a display of paintings. It was a declaration of identity, crafted with deliberate strokes. In the weeks that followed, Sarah poured her energies into curating a collection that reflected her journey. She meticulously chose each piece, ensuring that every painting spoke to the dialogue she had with the mirror and, more importantly, with herself. As she transformed her studio into a sanctuary of creativity, she felt assurances of bravery fill her heart. The night of the exhibit arrived, and Sarah stood before the collection, a melange of emotions swirling within her: anticipation, hope, and resolve. Each passerby peering at her work did more than simply admire the colors. They were participating in her story, one that unfolded like an exquisite narrative etched into every brushstroke. She watched faces light up in connection with her art, and for the first time, she felt the echoes of judgment dissolve into applause, enveloping her in a gratifying embrace. In that moment, she accomplished more than presenting her gallery. She conquered the fear of public scrutiny. It was an exhilarating culmination of weeks filled with self-doubt transformed into resilience. Friends, family, and acquaintances gathered to celebrate not just the art itself but the woman who painted it, the woman who declared her choice of authenticity over societal constructs. Amir was there, standing by with pride reflected in his eyes, supporting her as she spoke openly about her experiences and the inspirations behind her work. He no longer seemed like a shadow of her past but rather a partner in her bright future. Together they had faced layers of history. Now, they shared a horizon filled with dreams. As guests wandered through the exhibit, Sarah made her way to one of her favorite pieces, a vividly colorful painting that depicted a woman breaking free from the constraints of tradition, surrounded by lush, vibrant landscapes. It was a self-portrait of sorts, and she felt a deep sense of connection, knowing that what lay on the canvas was a reflection of her true self emerging at last. Near the end of the night, she noticed a family friend, the same one who had once held a condescending view of her potential, approach her. "I never knew this side of you existed, Sarah," he admitted, a breath of respect in his voice. "Your work is incredible, and so are you." The weight of his acknowledgement settled lightly on her shoulders, confirming that she had not just met societal expectations, she had transcended them entirely. That evening cemented Sarah's transformation. She had honed her voice, articulated her journey, and achieved something profoundly personal. She no longer sought validation through the approval of others. Instead, she reveled in the recognition of her own strengths and aspirations. Exiting the gallery, she took a deep breath, feeling lighter than air as she stepped into the night. The stars twinkled like the colors on her canvases, each one a reminder of how far she had come. No longer shackled by expectations or doubts, Sarah was stepping into the future she had claimed for herself. One filled with creativity, authenticity, and purpose. She achieved something unforgettable. She redefined what it meant to be true to oneself. This is your moment. If you want to witness more incredible journeys like Sarah's, you need to subscribe now to not miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now. It's important to keep the momentum and feed the algorithm that brings you these amazing tales. Engage with us, comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the transformation you just witnessed. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your support means the world.